how are you as a guy, a former player, but obviously you felt some emotional investment along the way here, and you're also a coach and parents of players, and I would assume there's some Bears love going on in your household this year. It's been really fun. How you doing?
100%. All four of my boys were all in on the Bears this year. 100%. That's all he talked about all season. That's all the kids I coached talked about at school, right? Was watching this football season. I think the game on Sunday, you say, I haven't seen anything like that. You have. If you watch the Bears this season, right? Just amazing what they could do at the end of football games to compete, to stay in games, and to win games. Ultimately, it didn't happen on Sunday night. But if you're looking at this football team moving forward, you're talking about the critical pieces, the foundational pieces to building a franchise into winning in this league. It's the head coach and the quarterback. And right now, that's what the Chicago Bears have moving forward.
I was thinking about the Caleb touchdown, Matt, and you're someone who played for a while at the highest level. The only thing that I kept thinking is wide is the widest, deep is the deepest. But there's no rule for that. There's no rule for the thing that Caleb did in that game.
No, not when you run back for, 20-plus yards at least, right?
Yes.
And then throwing off your back foot. I haven't seen something like that. Now, I've seen similar plays when I played in Green Bay with Brett Favre in terms of the playmaking ability, giving ground, but not 20 yards. The arm talent to do that, and that's I said it when it happened. This will come up throughout the draft process. It does every year. That arm strength does not matter at the quarterback position. Okay, it doesn't matter until it does, and that's the situation where it mattered when Caleb made that throw. You can also look at the Los Angeles Rams in the throw Matthew Stafford made in overtime on the out route to Devontae Adams from the opposite hash, flat-footed. That's when arm talent matters as well. So. But I still haven't seen a play like that what Caleb did. I still haven't, because to your point, Lawrence, as a defensive back in that situation, I would freeze a little bit too. Like, what is going on? Why is he moving backwards? And then you lose track of space. You lose track of your assignment. Your eyes drift all over the field because you probably can't even locate the quarterback in that time.
Let's stay on the draft idea, because Matt Bowen's other job or main job, or one of them, is really good draft expert and prospect analyst over at ESPN. And it's like the Caleb crazy plays, that's what he was known for. Like that's and here we are. And we have seen him develop in the other ways, but the crazy genius impossible plays are still there. So it's really just going to make people bank on that stuff even more with quarterbacks. If they see magic, they're going to get sold even more so, aren't they?
They are, and it comes in different forms. But I remember writing my little report on Caleb, and I wrote in there natural playmaking ability. Okay, and that's something you cannot really coach, right? And even from a defensive perspective, you look at someone like a Tyrann Mathieu during his time, especially at LSU and in the National Football League. If I'm a defensive back coach, I can't teach that, right? You either have that or you don't. Just rare instincts, rare playmaking ability. And Caleb does have that. And to your point, Speaks, he also really developed this year in terms of the other parts of playing the position. Throwing on time, throwing with rhythm, throwing with better location, keeping his eye level up, working on his footwork within the pocket. Everything developed this year. Now you have someone you're looking forward and you're saying, when we come back in 2026, he'd be one of the most dangerous players in the league.
What did Dennis Allen do in this game? And maybe the elements played a role, but it looked like that first 15 for the Rams was real good. And then after that, they struggled to move the ball. So what did you see Dennis Allen do?
Well, first, I got some numbers for you because I thought they were really interesting what the Bears did in this football game. Okay, during the regular season, they had a blitz rate of 27%. Sunday night, it was 37%. That's a major jump when you're looking at numbers and how it plays out in the football field. Man coverage in the regular season, 49%. Sunday night, 62%. They played 26 snaps of dime defense. And I think they did that because of the T.J. Edwards injury, to get their 11 best football players in the field. So you bring C.J. Gardner-Johnson into the football game and Kyler Gordon. I thought Gordon played one of his best football games. And we talked about this last week, Lawrence, that we didn't think he was quite ready to play in the wild card round. You could see it, but he turned it on at the end of the football game. He had it for all four quarters in this game. And I thought Dennis Allen brought great situational pressure, closed the edges. They played man coverage. They challenged top receivers, and they put Matthew Stafford in conflict situations for the majority of that football game. I thought it was Dennis Allen's best game of the year by far.
Wow.
What he did.
Wow. Yeah, and Stafford is not a guy you thought you could rattle, but Dennis found a way. Great stuff. How about the usage of Brisker? Brisker had the game, maybe his best game as a Bear. Did Dennis Allen do different stuff with him, or did Jaquan just show up in a different way?
I think he played within the structure of the scheme. There's no question about that. But I think a lot of that was his individual playmaking ability and doing it multiple ways. Really did it at all three levels of the field. We saw him pressure. We saw him tackle. We saw him run the alley. We saw him play from depth and create on-the-ball production down the football field. One of my favorite plays is when they're in split safety coverage. And on runaway, when you're playing a quarters technique, you have the cutback A-gap. That's where the ball is going to cut back. And to see him get downhill with urgency and tackle and make a play at the line of scrimmage, that's just really solid defensive football. I thought he did that all night.
We've been having a discussion about the DJ Moore play this past couple of days. How did you see that play? What were your thoughts on what happened?
Well, I think Caleb looked to the front side at first, and he didn't have what he liked. And there's a reason for that. Front side wide receiver got collisioned off the line of scrimmage, couldn't get into the route quick enough, and that disrupts the timing. So what do you do as a quarterback? You work backside. And they had a clear and replace concept, the deep seam route with DJ on the over. Now, again, this is a question that Ben Johnson has to answer. I can tell you what I see. I don't know what quarterback and receiver are thinking at that moment. But when I look at the game of football, I think that route should have been much flatter. I think it should have been a deep end breaker because there was a void to throw the football in. And when you take that route more vertically up the field, what are you doing? You're bringing the safety into play. You're creating a much shallower distance for him to break in the football. And look, Cam Curl made a great play. Great finish in the ball, too. But I think if DJ does flatten that route out, that's how it's supposed to be now. And that's what Ben Johnson wants. There's a void there to throw the ball, and I think that's where Caleb was trying to put the football.
Do you think that DJ Moore has been on his details and as professional and on point as a Ben Johnson wide receiver needs to be overall when you think about his season?
I would say this, Speaks. I think throughout the season, the Bears had to find out what they were on offense because they have so many targets in the pass game. And I think DJ's numbers are probably a little bit lower than we expected, but that's because Colston Loveland emerged, Luther Burden, we know about Rome. They have a lot of options in the pass game. But I thought during the playoffs, he was outstanding. You're talking about being professional, outstanding. And again, that one play removed because I can't answer that question. But throughout the playoffs, he made a bunch of plays for this football team.
Well, speaking of Rome, I'm trying to figure out, now that we've seen him for a couple of seasons, I think that the floor is in. I think that he's a good wide receiver. I'm wondering, how can we get him to great?
Right. Well, I think development was disrupted this season with an injury. You miss some time. Anytime you miss time in the field, you are not developing. And when you come back, a lot of times you're not 100% yet. But to get to the elite level of being a top 15 pick, I think it's more scoring production. I think it's utilizing him within scoring position to be an isolation target because he can win one-on-one and because he has incredible ball skills. But again, Lawrence, if this entire offense is back next season, his ceiling is going to be lowered a little bit because there are so many targets to throw the football to.
Matt Bowen is here with us on Spiegel and Holmes. It's been an interesting, progression to watch Ben Johnson in short yardage all season long as he's gotten more comfortable and believing in the run game and stuff. And then we saw what we saw on Sunday night. What did you think of the calls and the collection of short yardage moments that the Bears had?
Yeah, that was an area the Bears struggled, and especially down in the low red zone area of the field, because it's harder. The field shrinks. Your passing game is limited, and defensive players don't play with enough depth. They don't have to. So there's a lot more to account for. I think Ben really wanted to run the football. There's no question about that he believed in his run game, especially the right side of the offensive line, that he was going to run behind that right side and he was going to move the chains. And he kept going to it and going to it. What I'd like to see, Speaks, is some movement with Caleb Williams in those situations. I think there was times you can make that call. And look, I'm not really trying to question the head coach here. It's his job, not mine. But if I'm calling the plays in those situations, there's a couple times I think, can I get Caleb to the edges? Because what I think we've seen with Caleb this year, I know he didn't test in terms of the 40 and stuff, I don't believe. I would love to see his 10-yard split. His short area speed is outstanding. So when you get him on the edges, for him to get 1 yard, I think he can get there if he has some space.
Yeah, I totally agree. Matt Forte made a great, interesting point with us an hour ago that if they are going to run the ball in spots like that, he really likes wide zone stuff, like to really get the back outside. So maybe the offensive line can win and the back can win, as opposed to interior stuff where the offensive line has to win or else the back cannot win. That made some sense. Your thoughts? It does,
Speaks, especially when you're talking about the opponent. We haven't mentioned that yet. The Rams' defensive front is really good. Right? So to Matt's point, where you were getting to the edges, I like what he said that the running back can win too, because when you run wide zone or outside zone, however you want to call it, you can press the ball to the edge, you can get north-south, or you can cut the ball back. You really have 3 paths to take as a running back, and it does give you more options.
How would you describe the Caleb phenomenon? Because you talked about it with your boys, but this thing that's happened with him, how have you viewed it?
Well, I think it's a lot for a young player. Let's put it that way. I think it's a lot to rise this fast in your second season because of what he did late in football games and becoming that quarterback in the National Football League who wins those critical moments. That's really, but there's a million ways to describe the quarterback position. When we're talking about the game on Sundays, the best quarterbacks win those moments, right? And he did that a lot this season. I think it's a lot for a young player to take on. And that's why I wanted to say that, because he did an excellent job doing that. I thought he was very mature. And you can see just how he developed, too, over the course of the season when he addresses the media, when he's in front of reporters, and how he talks, and how he takes the blame for things, and how he never blames his teammates, and how he lifts his teammates up when he talks. I think he developed so much this year, and it's not just on the football field.
Yeah, it's really cool to see. I feel like, Matt, there's been kind of a slow acceptance of just who Caleb is as a player by the head coach. Like just sort of a begrudging acceptance. Like, all right, maybe I don't have my 70% guy, but boy, I got a guy who's magic at the end. You ever have a player like that as a coach that you're like, well, that's who he is, and he's pretty damn good, so I'll just make the most of it?
Yeah, I think that from a coaching perspective, you have to understand that not everyone you can coach a certain way. And what I mean by that is everyone has to be coached differently, right? And you have to learn that relationship over the course of a football season, how you can coach a young player and get the most out of him. You also have to be willing to pull back and say, he doesn't have to do everything like I want him to do at all the times, because there's some things he can do. That's why I brought up Tyrann Mathieu, that I just can't teach, and they help us win football games. So I'm going to allow him to play out of structure when he needs to, because I know what he can do with the football, and I know he can win those critical moments for me.
You care a lot about the profession of coaching, and Speegs and I are going to have a discussion at 5 o'clock about Ben Johnson's rookie season. What stood out to you about this first year and what Ben Johnson was able to accomplish?
One, I would say he's a leader of men, because it is very hard at that level. And I played for 5 head coaches. It's very hard at that level to motivate professional athletes at times and get them to believe in a group, almost to the point where you have a similar belief that you did as a college player, and you believe so strongly in your program. And I think you saw that this year with Ben Johnson, especially after games, especially after the way he talks to his football players. Very detail-oriented coach. We've seen a major difference between the Bears the last couple seasons compared to this year in critical situations, and how they won those situations that they did not do in the past. As a credit to the head coach and his coaching staff in terms of the details they preach. And the way they play the football game, the way they grew over the second half of the season. If you're a good coach in any sport, your team should not look like it did in week 1. You either go up or down. There's no in between. And that team, throughout the course of the season, gradually improved over the course of the season. I think at the end of the year, you would say the arrow was pointing up. So I can go back to our discussions early in September when they started 0-2. Much different tone, right? Look where they are now. Look where they finished. And obviously they didn't get to the end. Look, only one team gets to hold the trophy. And if you're a real NFL coach and a real NFL player, you will say this season was not a success because you did not win a championship. But you're looking at it from the perspective of building a program, there are a lot of positives here, and that's because of the head coach.
Yeah, it's the nuance of it right there. As you're saying that, I'm thinking about your season,
Right.
your high school season and how it ended and all of that. But this is pro football, and he's got to think about it that way. But, boy, it's been undeniable to watch the culture get built and see it happen, and you've really helped us understand that in addition to the X's and O's. So great stuff all year, Matt. We appreciate you.
All right, guys, I really enjoyed it. And I'll tell you this real quick. Thanks for always giving me a good platform to speak, whether it's high school football, talking the Bears, talking anything. You guys are the best. I really appreciate it.
We appreciate you, and we really learn a lot when we have guys like you and Matt and Olin on the air. It just makes the listener smarter, and that's the goal. It makes us smarter too. So it is much appreciated all the time, man, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, guys, we got free agency in the draft coming up. Never stops. So we'll talk soon.
Yeah, we will.
It never stops.